Hello, hello. This is the 127th Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 22-23, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. And today I had to do the intro 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't include them here for the listeners, but
exactly,
it's unusual.
It's not like I haven't said this intro not
many times before.
6 times before. Yeah. But yeah, it's really hard to pronounce this or is. Yeah. Today it's all about work. It's all about work.
That could be some kind of song.
Yeah, they should get into a song. And the reason it's kind of spontaneous because initially we were, we have a really long planning of things that we want to talk about, or maybe not. But we got a recent email from a listener, and we've occasionally gotten questions about work in the past, right? So people keep on asking, do you really have 3-day work weeks? Mm-hmm. Do you really have sabbaticals that take years? And then listener Casper sent us an email as a reaction to the emails about the election campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
Right, the 3 episodes where we were discussing that.
118 to 120.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took that as an opportunity to just discuss how was work handled in the 23rd century.
Mm-hmm. Right, we've mentioned, I think, like you say, we've mentioned several things in passing.
Yeah.
Over many episodes, but we've not tackled it as a subject.
Exactly, and we spoke about your study and my job at the UFOPL, but of course after the election campaign, I have 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you've been pretty busy with that.
And that's also what Casper is talking about.
Sure.
So
let me read his email.
Yeah.
So, Dear Dirk and Simon, first I gotta say that I heard your 3 episodes about elections in the future. I really enjoyed to hear how the democratic process works in your time. It sounds like a very interesting process. What I am wondering about, though, is do you have to work much harder now, Dirk? And how is it going with implementing your policy of more dirt in Frankfurt? Greetings from the past, Casper.
I like it. Greetings from the past. Mm-hmm. We're sending our tests from the future. We get greetings from the past.
It's very nice of you, Casper. Thank you.
We meet somewhere in the middle, in the present. But I think briefly, to answer briefly, I do often pull 5-day work weeks at the moment. It's actually true. I think I mentioned it in the last episode or the episode before that.
And that's a big increase.
Exactly. It's at the UFOPL, it was max 3 days a week. But yeah, sometimes I've had a few 5-day work weeks. Last week again, although I didn't have it planned. And that's putting a real strain because that means my life is a little out of balance. You know, I can imagine, let's say a week has 7 days.
Yeah. On
average, we work 3 days a week, which has the proper balance. A little bit more leisure than work.
Exactly.
Occasionally it's 3.5, but 5 days means 5 days of work, 2 days of leisure.
Yeah, and that's not right.
Exactly, and
it's too lopsided in favor of work.
Exactly, and that wasn't so clear to me beforehand, before the campaign, I have to admit. And apparently, government officials regularly quit their original job.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that they can focus on their governmental position.
Yeah, exactly. And I hadn't intended to, and I haven't done it so far.
Yeah.
So that's a brief answer, but we thought to take the different parts of, let's say, Casper's email apart and also the general work.
Yeah, and break it apart into various topics or subtopics.
Exactly.
Yeah, and sure, then we even, so I'll start with the first one then, And that was basically, do we really work so little in general?
Yeah, that's also the gist of a few of the emails that we... Exactly, because we mention it, it's like, wow, you're lucky and so on.
Yeah, they seem often, the people writing seem often to be surprised.
Yeah, and I have to say, I know by now, thanks to our podcasts and emails that we get from our listeners, we get a better insight in the 21st century than most people in our time. And it's kind of surprising, if you think about it, from a historical perspective, that in the 21st century, people work 5 days a week on average, sometimes even
I
more.
was going to say, on average, yeah, and some people are even working 6, even sometimes 7 days a week.
Exactly, and that is not normal.
No, meaning for humans.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the oldest information that we have is basically going back to the Stone Age, where people worked just enough.
Like
they were hunting or gathering
to
food.
meet the necessities.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of interesting. And then once they have enough food, they stop working and go do fun stuff. And once the food starts to run out, then they go take care of more food. And then imagine there's a bunch of cavemen in a cave. Mm-hmm. They have enough food. Let's go play. And then Grunt, you sweep the cave while we go play. And Grunt sweeps the cave and then joins the play. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's basically the extent of the work. And then that apparently that was on average 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And the other 4 days were used for leisure stuff, whatever.
For living, for being alive.
So I don't know what cavemen did for leisure.
I mean, that's going all the way back, but you can imagine before the Industrial Revolution, that's a bit closer.
Yep.
Relaxing, hanging out with friends, drinking, eating, talking.
I think after
playing music.
I understood it when humans became farmers, it was still the same. Mm-hmm. A farmer on average in the Middle Ages was working 3 days a week. On average, in the summer a bit more, in autumn maybe a bit more.
On average, spread over the year. Yeah.
Exactly, and in the winter hardly anything. And this was satisfying everybody's needs. And the thing is, then the Industrial Revolution came, and this allowed machines to do the work. And from this point onwards, humans work more. Mm-hmm. And then the digital revolution came for people to be able to, work more efficiently. And from this point onward, people work more.
Even more, yeah.
It's like, and I think at the top of the amount of work was roughly 20th century, 21st century.
Mm-hmm. I think late 20th, early 21st.
So that's roughly where our listeners are. So, sometimes I can understand that we've evolved, right? So the stuff that we do in the 23rd century...
Either evolved or devolved, or either way brought it back to a more normal
way. Exactly. In this case, it's not a natural progression. It's basically back to the standards, ironing out the little kink that was the 21st century. So this is not like a step forward. We've actually taken a step backward, but a healthy step.
Right, a good one.
Yeah. But then tying in to the other, let's say, topic that people have been sending us emails about is the theme of sabbaticals, because you're in one now. Mm-hmm. And then people are also asking about this regularly. How common is this? How long are they? Do you really have them?
Yeah. Like, is it... one of the questions is, people have asked, is it just that I'm able to do this, or is this a thing that everyone can do?
Yeah.
And sure, to answer that briefly, everyone can. It's not something that just a privileged few can do.
And it's people do it during work or in between work or during studies or in between studies, or it's basically, if you look at, there's no average life, right? Every life is different, but you can imagine people grow up, at one point they become adults, and then their adult life is a mixture between work, sabbaticals, further study, and then sometimes they overlap because you're a moment on a sabbatical, but also studying. Mm-hmm. Sometimes study and work overlap, or sometimes there's basically nothing in between. Mm-hmm. We also get really old. Mm-hmm. So basically doing one thing your whole life is...
Some people do find something that they enjoy that much that they want to, but not most people, and not myself.
It's not uncommon to basically, let's say you study... engineering for a couple of years, then you work as engineer for, 10, 20 years, and then you study something else. Then you take a sabbatical, then you can work on something else, and then you take another sabbatical. Maybe you go back to engineering at some point.
Yeah. Engineering is a good example because, for example, say you start in your career and you're really interested in it, you're really invested in knowing what's going on. Yeah. And after 20 years, maybe you've lost interest, so you're not so up to date anymore. Yeah. And then rather than trying to force yourself to keep working in that field, it makes much more sense to take a break.
Fresh start.
Exactly. Take a break, sabbatical, either just time off or study something else or whatever, but basically not force yourself to keep working in that field and instead find something new.
Especially the cavemen had it figured out how we don't necessarily need to do things different than they did.
Mm-hmm. Right. A lot of the way that what we've returned to now, rather the other way around. What was the unusual thing in the late 20th and the early 21st century was people's lives had increased in length.
Yeah.
And in theory, they could have had more leisure time,
yeah.
but everything was set up to still operate as if you needed to work for your whole life as hard as possible.
Mm. And also, if you would ask people, hey, who are you? They would say, I'm an engineer or a garbage disposal person or something like that, and not, let's say, personality based. Apparently, that's also a 21st century thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so how are you liking your sabbatical at the moment?
Very much so. So the part I like most is not working. That part is great. Mm-hmm. I had, worked for too long. Actually, I'm saying how people take breaks. I had actually pushed it a little too far in my last job. So I had worked too much, and now not needing to is really great. There is a bit of the overlap, sure, where I'm studying telekinesis. But okay, that's something really interesting to me. So it doesn't feel like work,
Yeah.
And also, of course, it's 1 day a week, so it's really quite manageable.
Okay. So you could also, for example, imagining prolonging that sabbatical indefinitely.
At least another 10 years, I'd like.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Good for the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I've got the time to dedicate to this. Mm-hmm. But then, so it's all nice and easy for me. Mm-hmm. But why is there so much work involved in being a government official?
Yeah. That's also the bit that wasn't really clear to me, because essentially a lot of the let's say official regulations and so on are delegated to artificial intelligence. So basically
delegated to them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, or delegated, or basically taken care of by them, because they're called intelligence for a reason. Artificial intelligence, AI, really knows things better than we do. I don't feel comfortable if I get asked to make important decisions, because I have no idea about it. I have no experience in politics. What do I know?
Right, right. You're brand new to this.
Exactly. So then, like, if now I have to make important decisions that influence a bunch of citizens, they have an effect on people, and then I have to make these decisions, while we have AI in place that knows everything about everybody throughout history.
Have all the knowledge, and more to the point, have been trained on this and have been practicing this for decades.
Exactly. So I assume we would just have kind of like a ribbon cutting function, maybe
ceremonial,
or maybe are like a peer group of representatives to test things out, or maybe to think outside of the box occasionally, basically typically human stuff.
To come up with new directions, or to either new or to change directions if necessary.
To give the AI occasionally a new input. Yeah. But the thing is, there are a lot of formalities, because officially we're the decision makers. So officially, every decision that needs to be made by us. So there's a lot of formalities.
Us meaning you and your colleagues.
Yeah, exactly. The city council, which means every single decree or law or whatever needs to be signed by people. Everything needs to have been read by people
before signing it.
Exactly, and before signing it, it also needs to have been discussed. Mm-hmm. So anything the AI comes up with to react to whatever is going on, or whatever the AI expects to come, they come up with something, then we need to read it, we need to discuss it, and we need to sign it. Mm-hmm. And there are checks in place by the AI to check if everybody read it and if everybody discussed it. Mm-hmm. And there are minimum times. You can't just say, I read it, it's fine, it's fine. No.
Like you can't, you actually have to do your homework.
Yeah, exactly. And they check. So it's like, this was 20 pages. You did it in 1 minute, or you did it in 5 minutes, or maybe you took enough time reading it, but the decision was way too soon after you read it.
Right. You didn't it's not just on time. Like they also monitor your discussions.
Exactly. And then it needs to be properly discussed, and not 5 minutes. Yeah, we all agreed. Yeah, but then you didn't discuss it properly. Go back. Mm-hmm. And then this is a lot of formality, because sometimes it's pretty clear, and sometimes we also really don't know. This sounds sensible. Let's do it. But it's apparently something from the past, where humans needed to validate everything. Mm-hmm. So that's taking up most of the time: the reading, the discussing, the signing, and on top of that, citizens whatever ideas they have a right to speak to people.
To their representatives, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
So meaning yourself. And
they can communicate with the AI, obviously. But if they want, they can speak to us, the city council.
And has there been a lot of that then?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of people on sabbaticals.
Okay.
So they have all the time in hands, and they hover around Frankfurt, and they say we should have parking lots, not just on top of the buildings, but halfway through.
I mean, I can imagine, like, for example, you were eligible to be voted for through the lottery system. But there may be people who really want to get into politics who weren't able, like basically who weren't selected in that way, but they still do want to have an influence or to have a say.
Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of the ideas that people have, they initially pass them along through the official channels. So they land on an AI, they make analysis. If it's sensible, then it gets, algorithm and processed, and then at one point it lands on our table. But if it's a dumb idea, let's have all buildings pink. I'm not saying that's a dumb idea, but imagine.
No, but something arbitrary, yeah?
Exactly. We should all live underground. Let's say Frankfurt, from now on, it's an underground city. We should all live underground. It's passed to the AI, some algorithms, some whatever, and then makes no sense. And then they come talk to the humans.
Right, as the appeal, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like AI turned down on my idea. I want to talk about it. And then, of course, these are the people that are not satisfied and didn't have the greatest ideas. So you don't end up having really...
You don't get the good conversations.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get the good conversations. And the thing with the
well-considered ones, I mean.
The underground living, I did actually have this conversation last week. Somebody who had that idea, and the AI told them living above ground is healthier.
Yeah.
But they had other arguments. Sustainability, I can't remember anymore, but the AI had already turned it down. The AI gave me the arguments, but of course, we were two humans discussing, so we were... Anyway, that takes a lot of time.
Sure.
But the most of the time, I have to admit, is taken up by team building events.
Okay, so everything you've just talked about, that takes up 1 day a week? Half a day?
I would say 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah. But I mean, those are all different things.
Sure.
So there's a bit of signing, and there's a bit of reading, and there's a bit of discussing, there's a bit of talking. And then I would say 1 day a week on average on team building events. Yeah. Yeah, it's important. Right? We have to be one voice, the voice of Frankfurt.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but you can imagine that it's tiring.
I can, yeah. And then... this was another thing that people were asking, not Casper, but other folk who emailed in, basically wondering how, what the progress has been with More Dirt in Frankfurt, like your campaign.
Okay, yeah. I think Casper also mentioned it. It's...
right, he did at the end there.
But it's there's been progress there in such a short time. I'm pretty happy about that.
That's impressive, yeah, a few weeks.
It really helps that I was a single topic candidate.
Sure, you're not very focused.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have an opinion on everything. I just ran on that particular slogan, More Dirt in Frankfurt. There wasn't much behind it either. For the people who didn't listen to the campaign episodes, the idea is to really just get more dirt in Frankfurt, and this way higher the ground, make the ground level
to raise it. Yeah,
to raise the ground.
To bring it. Raise also means to tear things down. Yeah, that's tricky. To increase the height of the ground level.
Exactly. So that was the whole thought about it. If you want to know the background, you can listen to the campaign episodes. Simon happily was my campaign manager, so we're both really into the topic. But yeah, there has actually been slight progress. Right. Most notably, we've signed a deal with Cleveland. I've been looking for other cities who had a similar idea, and there's a candidate that ran on More Sand for Cleveland.
Okay. So wait, were you familiar with their work? Were they familiar with your work?
No,
or is
coincidence. Yeah, exactly. I looked up basically other cities with similar ideas, and we signed a deal, or kind of like an agreement that we. Well, it's specifically to use the synchronicities between both initiatives, and so we can operate more efficiently.
Efficiently, yeah.
Efficiently. Oh man, I can't pronounce this.
I can see how like the higher workload is really getting to you. At the start, having to do the introduction a few times, and now also tripping over words. And
also, well, of course, when I'm communicating with the Cleveland representative, I communicate in Dutch, obviously, and he gets everything translated through the origins.
Yeah.
Now translating it in my mind back for the podcast, that all these civic words, those are tricky. I don't have that.
I can imagine.
Have them ready. But yeah, so and additionally, there's more progress. So we've been working on a proposal for research funding. And the idea is that if we get the funding going, the idea is to start a research with the aim spread out over 10 years to find out which dirt could be best suited for both cities.
Okay, so really long term. So meaning beyond your term in government.
True. Yeah,
So
exactly.
Maybe not long term in terms of people's lives, but just you're starting this process in motion, and it will be your successors, or even your successors' job to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. And the same in Cleveland. And the idea is, of course, like 10 years. And after 10 years, we know exactly which dirt could be best to spread out over
and which
both
sand
cities.
for Cleveland as well.
I mean,
that's not the research here, but they'll be doing their own.
Yeah, but we also kind of agree that, sand, dirt, kind of the same thing. Maybe we'll find another city that has more earth for Perth.
That would work.
I should get in touch with Perth.
Would make sense.
If they have no slogan there, maybe we can get them on board. Maybe we can get a new candidate running with that slogan.
Make it a global movement.
Oh, yeah, I like that. I'll make a note. So they actually have a trip coming up to the Bahamas to meet with Cleveland representatives, and we talk about the next steps. Yeah, that's so I'm pretty happy with that. And the thing is, of course, that's my single topic. So,
so any other decisions or votes or whatever? How do you go?
I've just went along with everything else.
Like with whatever else seems to be okay.
Exactly. We read everything. We discuss everything.
I'm sure you can. With what sounds right to you, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's as far as my busy work is concerned, but I still need to figure out a solution to combine both jobs and still find time for leisure. Maybe I can, maybe cut down a little bit on my work for the UFOPU for the time being. So you mentioned before, like besides sabbatical, you're also studying, right? So telekinesis, we've had, we even were not too long ago at one of your exams, right?
Right. Yeah. A couple of months ago, maybe.
And then we got to live see you perform some telekinesis. But of course, at one point you're done studying. So do you?
Right, I'll be fully qualified.
Do you have any specific job prospects once you've studied?
I mean, there are many prospects, and I haven't yet narrowed down one in particular.
I remember.
Or several in particular, yeah. I mean, the one that is most relevant, I guess, to my interests. So, I've got the Lego city here.
Yeah.
And sometimes I shrink down and go in there. And when I'm shrunk down and existing in my Lego city, sometimes I like to build Lego. So then I build really small, the pieces are much smaller, of course. They're proportional to the size. And actually, that's a job for people who are practiced in telekinesis, is actually building those sets without being shrunk down.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not convenient to shrink yourself down, but you still want to build or at least develop and test those new models. And so if you use telekinesis, if you use your mind and really high magnifying glass, a really high-powered magnifying glass, then you can still build it. I'm not so interested in actually doing that as a job, but I've been dabbling with it a little bit in my own city.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That actually sounds interesting. Okay.
But I decided to study telekinesis more because I was interested in it, not because I had any, not with the goal of working, meaning starting a new career using it for work.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's also, I think surgery or something is something we mentioned last time. Although
right, I am not interested in becoming a surgeon.
And also there's
definitely not an assassin. There are no telekinetic assassins. That's just rumors.
Yeah, exactly, totally. But also, I think I wouldn't want to study to become a surgeon if I would actually be interested in it, because there's hardly work for surgeons anymore, because everything is taken care of before it happens.
Exactly, with the cyborg chips.
Yeah, okay. Efficiently. No,
efficiently, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to pronounce
Think of it like fish.
Efficiently.
Like the fishes that swim in the sea,
Okay, efficiently.
There you
that
go.
works. Cool. Normally we would now go to the listener questions, but the whole episode was
pretty
based
much
on the
did that the
listener
whole time,
question.
yeah.
Exactly. So we can skip that part. Okay. Then
We're all done.
exactly.
Then, people listening to Test from the Future, episode 127, please send an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com and put that number 127 into the subject line so that we know this episode successfully went back in time. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to slide those into the email too.
Efficiently. I'm getting the hang of it.
They can be inefficient as well, but yeah.
All right. Then, everybody, thanks for listening and see you in 200 years.
Bye-bye.